Hello and welcome. Good to see you again. Today is going to be a Q&A episode. First of all, thanks to all of you guys who sent in questions. Those were really interesting questions and not always easy to answer. They got me thinking myself. Yes, I'm looking at you, Jesse. I will answer 10 of them today and then in a future episode get back to the rest of them. Towards the end of this video, there will also be a piece of music, a short composition in 7. I wanted to make sure that you guys also have some music to work on this week, and it's a teaser for next week's episode, which will be my top 5 odd meter rhythms. I also want to ask you guys a few things, and I'd like to start with that. My first question to you is in regards to the instrument that I use for the Friday videos. So far, in 99% of the episodes, I use my Kurt 9 instrument. The reason for that is that I felt it's the easiest for you guys to work with. Maybe you have the same scale because it's so common, or even if you don't, you can get used to one way of working. The downside is that all the little pieces I compose for these videos are in D minor. It's a little bit samey after a while. My question to you guys is, what do you actually prefer? Would you like some more variety and listen to different scales? Or do you prefer the conveniences that I mentioned earlier? Please let me know in the comments. It would be very useful for me to know that moving forward. Now let's move on to your questions.
What can I do to play 2 different rhythms with 2 different hands? What exercises would you recommend for a beginner to develop hand independence?
The way that works best for me is to get first one pattern going with the one hand and then to add the second hand stroke by stroke, starting with only the first stroke of the second pattern you want to add. Once you're comfortable with that, you add the second stroke and so on. You can go very slow and then build up the pattern step by step and then build up your speed. Remember that you can play anything if you just slow it down enough. Let me give you a quick example of the process. So let's say you want to play 2 against 3, which is usually one of the first patterns when working on independence. One hand does 3 strokes while the other does 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. We can start with the right hand doing 3 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And keep that going. Thankfully, the left hand pattern only has 2 strokes, so we start with the first one, which is on the first beat, together with the right hand. Now the second left hand stroke goes between strokes 2 and 3 of the left hand. This can be confusing, so make sure you go really slowly. 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3. Once you're comfortable with that, slowly speed it up. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And if you want to make sure that not only your hands, but also your brain understands the pattern, you can switch counting the 3 strokes of the right hand and the 2 strokes of the left hand, like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2. I have an episode coming up about polyrhythms, which should give you some patterns to work with.
What is the best way to count triplets? Should we count them 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a?
The most official way that you will find in books about drumming, for example, would be 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. I don't find it very convenient to speak though. I would rather use 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. When it's just about the timing and I don't need to count the time signature, I also often use the Indian syllables. Takite, 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 takite. Alternatively, just see what works for you. Anything with 2 syllables. 1 apple, 2 apple, 3 apple. 1 handpan, 2 handpan, 3 handpan. Whatever rolls most smoothly from your tongue.
Is it possible to combine different time signatures within one solo composition, like first playing a 4-4 and then switching to a 7-8?
Absolutely. It brings some challenges regarding structure and transitions between different parts, but it can make for really interesting music. One of my pieces that goes through different time signatures is Kuckhermann. I will link it in the description. Check it out for an example what it can sound like.
I wanted to ask about your home studio. What kind of equipment do you use, and do you do everything yourself? Which tools do you suggest for great sound quality for online videos and audio?
Most of my handpan and percussion recordings I do with the stereo pair of Schoep's MK4, often in combination with either a Royer R121 ribbon mic or a bass drum microphone. I mostly do everything myself. Audio recording and mixing, video, lighting, video editing, post-production. I would absolutely love to outsource some of this because it does take a ridiculous amount of time, but so far when I tried it wasn't very successful. Mainly because what I do is so specific. For example, a big part of the post-production process for the Friday videos and for my online courses is the notation. So I would have to find someone who not only knows video editing, but also music, handpan playing, understands my notation system and everything around it. If you happen to know someone who fits that description and is looking for a job, please let me know.
You look funny with your beard.
I don't know how to respond to that. Let's move on to the next question.
Is there a good way to accompany singers on a handpan?
Yes, this can absolutely be done. It's not the easiest instrument to work with for song accompaniment, but if you crack the code, it can be really nice. Often the scale is the limiting factor, and you will have to combine several instruments for one song. You can accompany by playing chords, arpeggios, or groove patterns. Two singers you can check out, because they do this really nicely, are Josephiné and Naylor, and I will put links to their work in the video description. And another question to you guys. I'm still figuring out the format for this video series and how and if I can keep it going. Right now, each episode takes a few days to produce and it's not so easy to keep that up. But I also enjoy doing it, so I'm looking into different options. My question to you is, which of the episodes so far was most beneficial to you and why? And another question. Could you see yourself supporting the video series through something like a Patreon? Where in exchange for a contribution of a few dollars a month, you would get access to additional material, like notation PDFs or the backing tracks that I create for the videos. I'll try to have a poll come up on the screen, otherwise just let me know in the comments.
What is a simple and easy way to make background music like in your videos? I'm trying to find rhythm tracks and music in D.
There are a few different ways you can approach this. If you have recording equipment and maybe you play other instruments, just record yourself. That's what I do for the videos. If you have a looper, you can even do this on the fly. Just record a loop of yourself, have it repeat and then use that for your practice. There are also loop libraries and software. 15 years ago, I used to work with a program called Band in a Box, which not only created a rhythm track for you, but also harmony. I checked and they're still around, the software is still available. It was already pretty nice back then, just for practicing soloing and stuff, and I'm sure they've come a long way. Finally, I have a collection of rhythm tracks available on Handpan Dojo. They're available for free, you don't have to register or give your email, and I'll put the link in the video description.
I'm still waiting for the Hyriath CD.
Unfortunately, me too. The record company is really taking their time.
In your second course, there are a lot of examples for oriental rhythms. How do you suggest practicing them?
If I want to start with a new pattern, I would generally just practice the pattern by itself. So only in the central note area, low accents, high accents, just get the basic structure into your hands and fingers. Once that is comfortable, then you can start adding melody. And the easiest and most straightforward way to do that is to substitute some of the accents of the rhythm with melody notes. Let's say you're playing a maksum, dum, tak, tak, dum, tak. You have 3 taks there, 3 high accents, and you can substitute each of these with a melody note. Maybe start with just 1, then 2, and then all 3 of them. You can create musical sequences like that. Just find, let's say, 4 variations that create a nice musical sequence. This has the nice effect that you not only practice the rhythmical pattern in different ways, you also get used to it in a musical context. And of course, if you have access to play-along tracks of the rhythm you're practicing, it's always great to work with those.
Thank you for your videos. Unfortunately, my English is not so fluent. Is it possible to release your videos in German as well? The playing is sometimes a little fast for me. Can you add slow motion sequences?
Hey Marcus and Babak, thanks for your feedback. So it's not easy to create videos that work for everyone and for all levels. I'm trying to make them in a way that as a beginner, intermediate or advanced player, you can always take a little bit with you from the video, but of course it doesn't always work. And some of the episodes are more appealing to beginners while others more for intermediate and advanced players. Regarding the playing speed, YouTube has a speed option hiding in the lower right corner of the video player. So you can basically switch to slow motion at any point in the video if things are getting too fast.
Can you do a tutorial about more advanced techniques, such as harmonics and advanced rolls, like the ones you do in Kuckhermann, or the ones Nattagh uses in your duet video? Can you tell me how to do the butterfly roll technique?
I have an episode about harmonic isolations already planned. And regarding the Nattagh roll that he plays in our duet video, I will leave the teaching up to him. We will produce a course on advanced handpan techniques together later in the year. Alright, those were 10 questions. It felt like a lot of talking. I hope you guys still enjoyed it, and thanks so much for sticking with me until the very end. Next week is going to be all about odd meter rhythms. And as a teaser, we have a composition in 7 coming up now, so you guys have something to work on until then. Have a good practice and see you next week. Okay, this groove in 7 is subdivided 2-2-3. You play all the 3 accents with your right hand, and the hand pattern goes right, left, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, make sure to really take your time with this basic pattern, especially if you're new to odd meters. Practice it until you feel quite comfortable with it and you don't get confused by the unusual rhythm anymore. That can be days or even weeks. And after that, come back here and check out the composition. Make sure to use the speed function of the video player if you need it, to check out everything in slow motion.